And hello, Philippines, and welcome to the World News Jam right here on DCRJ and RJ TV. My name is Eric Lecain, here talking about some of the most interesting stories around the world. And I am joined, as always, with Mr. Dan Kang. Now, as many of you noticed, we are live here in the studio today, and we always ask that question, where in the world is Dan Kang? Because he is a world traveler. Well, this week, we know exactly where Dan Kang is. He is sitting right next to me.
The first time I think we've actually been tandem since 2019.
It's been a while. It's been a while since Dan and I have been here live in the RJ studios here in Makati, but we are here today talking about stories that are going on around the world. Now, Dan, today, a lot of the shows that we have done seem to fall on big holidays. We had Christmas, we had New Year's, but today we have Easter. Today we have Mother's Day.
Holy Day, yeah, Mother's Day.
Mother's Day is today. And I know Dan and I, neither of us are mothers. However, we did have, well, we honor our mothers and we remember our mothers today.
Sure.
I was in the mall earlier today, over there in Robinson's Mall, and the mall was packed. People were everywhere, and I was watching this one group there in Kenny Rogers, and the father was yelling at the older daughter, and the two younger boys were fighting, and the baby was crying, and the aunt was talking really loudly. And in the middle of it, I could see this woman who I believe was the mother just sitting there with her eyes closed, just her head rocking back and forth like she was singing a little song to herself. So anyway, I just...
The appreciation for the mother, right? This is what the mother endures.
She is the glue that is holding that family together, I think.
The endurer.
But I also had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine today, this morning, and she is an interesting woman. She takes the bus from Pampanga, where she lives. She takes a tricycle to a Jeep to a bus, and she comes to Manila and she works. Wow. And then on Friday, as she goes back home to Pampanga, gets home at midnight, spends Saturday and Sunday in Pampanga, 3 a.m. Monday morning, takes a trike, takes a Jeep, take a bus, gets back to Manila. She does this every week.
Wow.
And she is a single mother. And so, I thought that today on Mother's Day, we would recognize single mothers in the Philippines because they are a huge part of society.
There's a large population of single mothers in the Philippines, and yeah, it's huge here. And they, I tell you, they're courageous, they're brave, they endure a lot. My mother was a single mother as well.
Yeah.
She worked like 18-hour days.
Yeah, so was my mom.
Yeah,
my mom was a single mother.
I watched my mother work her heart out. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just, when I was hearing that story, I'm like, wow, you know what? This woman, she goes through a lot, and she doesn't have to go back to Pampanga, but she does anyway because she wants to spend a little bit of time every week with her daughter, because a lot of times in the Philippines, mothers will have to leave their children behind.
That's right.
In the province,
That's
and
right.
then come to Manila or go to Cebu to work and send money back, and
That's
they don't get to watch their children grow up sometimes. And I just I'd like to recognize all those single mothers out there today and wish them all a happy Mother's Day.
And the grandmothers that have to take care of the children
and
while the mother is working
while the mothers, they have to raise children twice.
Who are also probably single mothers.
And what's interesting is the grandmothers don't seem to mind.
Yeah.
In the United States, the grandmother's like, hey, I've already done it once, I'm not doing it again.
Right.
But here, everybody seems to work together as the family unit just to make enough money to make ends meet, and give their kid the best life that they can give them.
The family unity and collective is immensely strong here, for sure.
So anyway, to everyone out there who's watching the show today, happy Mother's Day. I will be remembering my mother as funny and hysterical as she was back in the day. But let's get to the news. this week was a big news week. Usually we start out with U.S. news, and this week was a big week in the United States because, coming off an indictment, the former U.S. President Donald Trump, he was having an indictment there in New York City for paying off the porn star. We've talked about this numerous times already, about the affair and everything, but this week, Trump, he's always going through something. This week, he was found liable of a civil rape case in the same town there in New York, and the New York jury found him guilty of sexual assault of a woman in a department store back in the 90s. Now, to be clear, they did not find him guilty of rape because for it to be rape in New York, they have to prove. That's right. The legal term is penetration, which they could not prove. Of course. But they did find him guilty of sexual assault and defamation. So he was guilty for saying that he never assaulted this woman and ruined her career, a bunch of things, whatever. So they found him guilty of that. And part of the reason that they were able to find Trump guilty was because of Trump. Put his foot in his mouth. The videos that he had made from his depositions before, where he was like, I'm a star, and they, the way he talked about her and belittled her and talked down to her, and then they played the infamous tape where he said that he can do whatever he wants with women, and the fact that he didn't even bother to show up for the trial, and the fact that after this incident happened, because that's what Trump always said, why the Trump people are like, why didn't she say something back then? Well, she actually did. She told a couple of people that this had happened, and they all testified. And then they had other women testify that Trump has also sexually assaulted. All these things, put together, the jury unanimously found him guilty and awarded her $5 million. Wow. So, all this time, now one of the interesting things is Trump was found liable for this, but Trump's got a lot of other problems. He's got a lot of others. He's got a civil case coming up in New York City for $250 million. He's got, that's because of fraud and money laundering and tax evasion. He's got a criminal trial coming up in Georgia that he may be indicted for very soon. He's got those problems down in Florida for stealing all those government documents. So this is the current front runner for the President of the United States there in Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, the United States being the United States, the level of corruption in all the countries is pretty invasive everywhere. But for the United States to have that is a little bit troubling. It's concerning. So
it's just there's so many indictments, and now he's got the indictment in New York in the criminal case, and now he's got the civil libel in the rape case. He's got a whole bunch of things coming up, and we're not even close to the election yet. The election's not till 2024.
I can't remember the last time in the last 12 years that we had actually a good candidate for president that wasn't engrossed in so many, corrupt. I
don't remember how much of a corruption scandal Obama had.
Yeah.
The amount of scandals that were in the Obama White House were zero. He never really actually had any scandals at all.
There was a lot of. They're always going to dig up something, right?
Yeah.
But whether those turn out to be factual, or they give up or whatever else.
Yeah. Well, right now, the Republican Party, who is now taking control of the Congress, they haven't done actually a lot of policies yet. All they have done is try and figure out what they can get on Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Can we get anything on Joe Biden? Any kind of corruption, any kind of scandal? Did they take money? Did they take bribes? Did they do anything? So they've been trying. They haven't found it. They haven't put anything out yet. No concrete anything yet.
But time will tell, right?
I know. they're trying. They got to, I got to give it to them for trying. They're trying to find something on him. They haven't really doing too many policies. In fact, this is all that I think that they've done so far since they've been in power there in the Congress. But
I don't know how many career politicians don't have something hidden in there.
Come on.
How deep are you going to dig?
You got I mean, just the word politician kind of means that.
I'm a career politician at that. I mean, 20 years.
But speaking of politicians and political things, this week, the second biggest story in the United States, unfortunately, still surrounding Trump, is what CNN did. CNN decided to put on a town hall for Donald Trump, which I was really surprised when I heard that because, CNN is kind of always kind of been a sort of kind of anti-Trump. But anyway, they decided to have a town hall and do it live. So Trump, there's nothing they can do. Trump can just speak, as he wants. And they had a moderator come. And CNN has gotten so much criticism for doing this week because Donald Trump came out for his town hall. The moderator was very good, and she gave him some really tough questions. But the way they did it, the format that they did it, they put people in the audience that were obviously Trump supporters. So it came off not really as being a town hall where it's a kind of debate back and forth, but more of a rally, like a Trump rally.
And CNN did that.
Yeah, CNN did that, which surprised a lot of people.
Well, a lot of CNN viewers are anti-Trump as well, so...
I mean, I would say of the viewers of CNN, I would say probably about 95% are anti-Trump. So they got a lot of flack for doing that because what did Donald Trump do during that town hall?
They should actually be applauded for doing that because it shows objectivity at least, does it not?
That's what they said.
Yeah,
that's what they said.
absolutely.
I mean, Anderson Cooper came out and he tried his best to say, all right, listen, guys.
Yeah,
a lot of people are believe that that what we did was the wrong thing, that we should not have given this guy his platform, but we need to see what he has to say. And the people that were in the audience that were cheering him and laughing when he made derogatory comments against people and so forth, that's half of the country. That is a sampling of half of the United States and what they think. And, all the people, this is what Anderson Cooper said, that all the people that think that, he could never win again, that they'll indict him for something, they'll convict him of something. Well, they haven't yet, criminally. He lost a civil trial this past week, but criminally, they haven't really got him yet. And they've been trying.
Sure.
It's not like they haven't tried.
Sure.
And there's a lot of things coming up, but... what did he use an example of? You can't just sit in your silo on your farm and believe that this is all going to go away.
So, something I've been thinking about is if he does, let's say he gets elected to be the president, does he get amnesty for all of these charges?
Yeah,
is that what happens?
If you get elected president, you
away.
cannot charge a sitting U.S. president with any crime.
That's and they even past crimes, right? You can't.
What happens is if you get charged for a past crime, then you're president, and then when you're done with your presidency, then it comes back.
Okay.
Like for instance, this week, this rape thing has been going on for a long time, even before he was president. Right. And then after he became president, then it went back into court. And all these things that they have been coming after him for money laundering and all these tax evasion, all that stuff, they had to wait. They had to wait until he was done as president, and then it all comes back.
So you get temporary immunity from all that.
Yeah, temporary immunity is pretty much it. But what I found interesting about this town hall was people are so surprised that Trump came on to CNN and he said things that were not true. people were surprised that Trump said things that were not true. I mean, they used to fact check Trump like every day when he was president. So I don't know why people are so
most fact checked president in history, I think.
People were so surprised, and people are like, well, they have to fact check him live. You can't fact check Trump live. I mean, almost everything that comes out of his mouth, whether you believe it or not, is not really true. I mean, the first thing he started out with was the election was stolen. And he talks about the videos that they have of them stuffing ballot boxes. All right, none of this is true. They had, Trump lodged 60 different court cases. How come they didn't mention in any of these court cases anything about stuffing ballots? Because it's not true. I mean, it's not. And by the way, all the cases that they lodged against they lost every single one of them. So the woman said, hey, by the way, you lost every single case. How can you continue to say, can you admit to us, Donald Trump, that you lost the election? Of course he's not going to admit to it.
Yeah, the thing is the strategy of that whole event. I think that he just went the wrong direction. He should have just went straight to the future and not keep rehashing some of the past. Even if they try to bring that up, he should have just went straight for the future. But trying to defend yourself and constantly
Interesting you should say that, because a lot of Republicans came out and said, I wish Trump would stop talking about the past.
Yeah.
We're sick of hearing about the 2020 election. It's time to talk about the 2024 election.
That's right.
But, he spent a lot of time talking about how, the election was stolen from him.
Yeah, it's over.
They've already debunked everything already.
And it's at that point where, regardless if it was or not, let's move on. Let's just accept whatever happens. There's a lot of things happen.
One of the things that he said, he went on about the Democrats and the abortion issue, because she tried to tie him down to the abortion issue, which is going to be, honestly,
a big
it's going to be abortion and guns. That's what we vote on in America. And they tried to tie him down on a national abortion ban. And what did he say? Something about the Democrats want to have abortions after the baby is born.
I don't think
that is not true. First thing, there's no such thing as an abortion after the baby is born. After it's born, I think it would be called murder, right? I'm not sure.
I think it just has the wrong concept of what that.
The Democrats the ninth month and after the baby's born, which is not true. That's come up multiple times, and there's no Democrat that's ever said that ever. So, but the interesting thing that he said during this thing was he mocked the woman that he just lost the civil case to 24 hours before for rape, saying she was a crazy person and he never even met her. And who is this woman anyway? And the audience is laughing and everything.
That's
for this woman that just beat him in a trial for rape, sexual assault. So
again, that's something the subject that he never even should have went to. Never even should have went there.
I mean, it's just making the more outrageous you are, the more you're in the news.
But that's the thing, he's a master, and they all are. All the politicians, they're a master at, he
is the master.
Working your emotion, and but that's America. That America votes with their emotions. They don't vote with their logic. I think a lot of people do that anyway. Voting with your heart, not with your head. And that's always been an issue. In the Philippines. Absolutely.
Big time.
Absolutely.
But they asked him a bunch of things. He criticized his vice president, which January 6th, the people that he sent to the Capitol, they were going to kill him. He sent them to kill him, and they asked him. They said, they're going to kill your vice president, and Donald Trump's response was, maybe he deserves it. And they also asked him about the Ukraine war, which I found to be very interesting, because Donald Trump was the one that he was impeached because he held up the money for the weapons to Ukraine until they gave him dirt on Joe Biden. And he actually got impeached for that. And he said, if I was president, this war would be over in a day. But what he wouldn't say was, if it's over in a day, who the winner would be.
Yeah.
Because he is very pro-Russia, because they have bought his properties and his hotels, and he owes a lot to Putin for a lot of things. And so if he were president, first thing, if Donald Trump was president, I don't think this war would be like it is now, because he would be siding with Russia. And the United States is the reason, I think, why the Ukrainians are doing so well now, because the United States is backing them and sending them weapons and so forth. They're able to fight the Russians. But if Donald Trump was elected, the whole thing would probably go a different way.
No, I don't know. I have no comment on that, because that's been so... the war in Ukraine and Russia, it's just been drawn out right now. It's almost like out of everyone's mind already, and it's still going.
You know how
unreal.
much in the last, I think, maybe 4 or 5 shows, what we have said, what we have reported on the Ukraine war?
Yeah.
Nothing.
I know.
And there's a lot going on.
And nobody does still.
There's a lot going on in Ukraine right now. I mean, there's all kinds of there was a group that was just pushed out of one area. Right. The Wagner group was criticizing the Russians about crazy things like bullets and stuff. And they were going to leave. There was a new attack just last night.
Yeah.
And it's kind of out of everybody's mind because it's far away, and it's the same news that we said the week before. They were attacked here. Well, that's the same thing we said the week before. It's just a new attack in a different place.
I wonder how many people, if you went out on the street and asked, would even think the war is still going.
I know. Isn't that interesting?
Right?
And it is. It's totally going on.
Yeah.
And there's no end in sight. And there is absolutely no way that this war will ever end until another country comes in and and forces it to end, because Putin has his stronghold here, and the Ukraine is never giving up. The United States keeps flooding them with weapons. So does the EU, and so is this another Afghanistan
or another North and South Korea?
Or another North and South Korea.
It's still going,
which is still going on. You guys actually are still at war.
It's still at war. At an armistice, but still at war. That's right. 75 years, I think now.
But
70 years.
which is interesting, like how long that's going to go. That's
right.
a whole other show. We can talk about the Korean War. But one of the other things that they asked him, and this is something that we talked about on the last show, and I have talked about Filipinos this week. This is the number one subject that I've talked to them about, is that debt ceiling, because a lot of them don't understand what the debt ceiling is.
Yeah, still.
And we all go out, it's a debt ceiling. I don't understand it. But you know what? If the United States defaults on its loans in June, that is going to affect the world. And so they asked Donald Trump, and he goes, well, you know what? They should just let it blow up. Let the Republicans just let it blow up and let the United States default on its loans. Now, when Donald Trump was in office, the Democrats were like, okay, we're going to raise the debt ceiling. They raised it like 3 times. Sure. By the way, when Donald Trump was president, I mean, I'm not criticizing or anything, but 25% of the debt that the United States hold is from the Trump era. So he talks about spending all the Democrats. That's what he said. He goes, the Democrats are spending like crazy, and it's unfeathered, and they need to do this and just let it and just let the world burn. But before, when he was president, and that's what he said. He goes, but they said, well, Mr. President, when you were president, you raised the debt ceiling. He goes, well, I'm not president now. So
June, that's pretty close.
Pretty close.
I don't think that's going to happen.
And people don't understand that it's that bad, but it is. It's really bad, because countries like the Philippines, whose cash reserves are all in U.S. dollars.
That's right.
I mean,
there's quite a few countries that way.
There's quite a few countries, including South Korea, which you have the same issue with.
But the U.S. dollar right now is so strong. It's
I know. I mean, it's incredible.
It's immensely strong
I think
right now.
we're almost hitting 56 here in the Philippines. It came very close last week.
Yeah.
But anyway, so CNN is getting highly criticized, especially because Donald Trump praised the January 6th rioters and said it was a wonderful day, and talked about one of the black policemen as a thug. I mean, it just went on and on and on. And this is a question I have for you today. Does it seem like this is all entertainment? Like it's not really to find any new policies or anything. It's just to do something so outrageous that we have to talk about it for the whole week, that we're talking about it here on the show.
Yeah, well, that's mainstream media right now. I mean, it's not a strategy, is it not? I mean, CNN doing that, I think it's the right direction, actually, being presenting themselves a little bit more objective and allowing that to happen. I mean, who would have ever imagined that they would have that and CNN would be hosting that?
They're trying to get ratings. They're trying to get those Fox viewers to come over and watch them.
Whatever. Well, who knows? I mean, there's so many different reasons that they would be doing that, right? Whether it be good or bad. And this is what it comes down to. Is it negative or positive? Well, who cares? We're getting the ratings.
Yeah, I know. That's what they... As long as we, and everybody did, and everybody watched it, and you know what everybody's talking about this week? Yeah. Every single show on every single channel is this.
That's right.
If you watch MSNBC and NBC, CBS, this is all they're talking about.
And CNN did it.
And CNN did it. Yeah, so CNN is the news.
Yeah.
They are the news. Now, people say, well, wait a minute, they shouldn't be the news, they should talk about the news. But this week, they have made themselves the news.
Yeah.
And just speaking of one other person that's made the news, and then I'll move on from U.S. stuff, is our old boy, George Santos,
I knew you were going to bring him up.
Who we love here on the show. We have talked about him. And,
oh, boy.
Because honestly, like the people have said before, when you come to the Philippines, you can be anything you want. You can be a doctor or a financial advisor. Sure. You can be an ambassador. You can say anything, This is what this guy, George Santos, is. He's this guy. He's a U.S. congressman, and he won the congressional seat by lying about everything in his entire life. His work, how much he made, his sexual orientation, his name. We're not even sure what his real name is. Anyway, this week, just really quick, George Santos was found, he made a deal with the Brazilian government, plead guilty to using false checks. He stole some checks and bought some clothes with some checks, and they were trying to find him, and for a while they gave up. The case was put on the side because they couldn't find him, and then he won a congressional seat in the U.S. Congress, and so then they found him.
One of those online scammers would send you a check.
So the Brazilian government came after him, and so he pled guilty, and he's paying restitution.
Oh my God! He's like the pander extraordinaire.
But what was great was this week George Santos was arrested in the United States for a whole bunch of stuff. Fraud, theft of public funds, money laundering, making false statements to Congress. It goes on and on and on. He took donations from his campaign and went on shopping sprees and bought expensive clothes.
With bad checks.
You see those nice jackets that he wears, those scarves and things? He bought those with campaign donations.
Wow.
And it turns out that when COVID happened, he was making $120,000 a year in Florida, I believe it was Florida, and he was collecting unemployment in New York.
Oh, goodness.
So he faces up to 20 years in jail if he is convicted. Now, he's not the president.
Yeah.
So he's not immune to prosecution.
That's right.
Like the president is.
That's
right. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out, that our good friend George Santos has been arrested this week. But speaking of politics, Thailand, right now in Thailand, they are voting for parliament.
That's right. They're going to an election.
And, this is a big deal.
It is a very
big deal. This is the first polling that Thailand has had since the 2020 youth uprising that broke that taboo rule about never speaking out against the king.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this here on the show before, that the Thailand government was overthrown by the military.
True coup.
And so, surveys have shown that in this election, that those people that are currently in power looks like they're going to lose.
Oh, yeah.
That people have had enough of these coups. There's been, 2 coups in Thailand.
Yeah, but Thailand really should. They deserve, better. They're worldwide recognized and known as a fabulous vacation country. And, a lot of my friends are living there right now. And
honestly, to tell you, Dan, you don't think of Thailand as being a military dictatorship.
Right. That's right.
But it's kind of become that because but the party that they believe is going to be the next ruling party, and they are the party of the poor. So they are, they promote poor issues, and they're going to give every citizen 10,000 baht. They're going to help the farmers. There's a bunch of policies that they're running on. But the question is, if they win, will the military have another coup and not let them into power?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, historically, they always have. And I mean, the second question to that would be is, can they sustain without widespread corruption as well? Because
I mean, this has something to do with this overwhelming thing. It's happening around the world. Is the youth vote?
That's right.
The youth vote is really making the big difference in Thailand. Yeah. And the party that's currently there, they're trying to put a hand out to all the older voters, because those are their voters. Because right now, the youth vote is starting to supersede over,
and it should,
which has not been before, but now all of a sudden it really is.
It should be worldwide. I mean, all those old fogies have had our turn already. Time to hand it over. I really do think that
it's interesting how the youth around the world.
That's right.
And I hate. Oh God, I can't believe I'm about to say this. And how TikTok has brought a lot of youth into the fold of politics. Which also reminds me of another story that it's going on right now, is that MTV News, which we grew up on. And I grew up on watching it. When I was young, I watched MTV News all the time. That's where I got my news.
Yeah.
And this week, they've called it quits.
Wow.
It's over.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's an end of an era anyway.
The reason that it's over is because the youth doesn't get their news from television anymore.
That's right.
They get it from Facebook and
social media, and
social
TikTok,
media. Which is that a good thing or not a good thing?
Well, I mean, I think really I think the level of intelligence actually has gone up. As dumb as I think people are nowadays, the youth are so much smarter than when I mean, is it the technology?
It's a different kind of smart.
It
I have
is.
to say it's a different kind of smart.
It is.
That they because right now, I mean, the youth is before, when we were growing up, we had the news, and that was that. We watched the news. Now the news could be anything. And that's the era that we are in now. And speaking of presidencies and news, Turkey is going to decide a president also today. And Erdogan could lose. This is a guy that we have talked about extensively on the show because he's very close to an authoritarian dictator. And he knows it. He doesn't mind. But he's been in power for 20 years. And they were thinking that he may stay in power for a lot longer. But, because of the problems that they have had this year with that earthquake, the earthquake that happened there in February, and how they dealt with the earthquake, and the problems of all these issues with the taxes and everything that's going on in Turkey, and the fact that the youth there is now coming out to vote.
I have a very close friend that moved to Turkey from Korea. He's Iranian, and he's married to a Korean, and he moved to Turkey, and he tried to convince me to move there last year. And then suddenly I saw him posting back in Korea, and I'm like, oh, what's up? Oh, you back in Korea? Yeah, man, the earthquakes.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
he moved right back because of the earthquake.
We talked about this here on the show. 51,000 people died in that earthquake. And after the earthquake was over, there was a bunch of mistakes. They had all kinds of issues, a lot of things that caused the deaths of other people.
Right. Well,
and I think that Erdogan had a hard time coming back from that. And, that coupled with the fact that right now inflation in Turkey is through the roof, and everybody's just like, okay, enough of this guy. And his policies, especially his international policies, and his, what is his relationship with Russia, all these issues that are going on in Turkey. And like I said, the youth has been rallied, and they have come around this other guy. And what they did, in Turkey, there are multiple coalitions, and all of them have all surrounded about one guy, which never happens in Turkey, just to get this Erdogan out of office.
Isn't it interesting that nothing tells you more about the stability and strength of your government than a good old natural disaster, right? Like, you have a natural disaster where all these people are, where the government needs to kick in, FEMA, whatever else, and you see all the failings, right? And all of these unnecessary deaths that we're supposed to, that's what the function of the government is. Part of that huge function of the government is when those kind of disasters happen, they kick in, and then we get to see how weak they are. Then we get to see how strong they are.
And all the politicals. I mean, that happened with George Bush in the United States. That happened in the Philippines.
Korea too, with the huge Halloween incident. You're right.
Yeah, the Halloween incident. Which, by the way, we talked about here. We did
Katrina.
In-depth
remember
thing.
that?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. The Bush years with Katrina.
Yeah, Seawall incident in Korea as well.
I remember talking about that thing, the Halloween thing.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what today gives us around the world, because of all these presidential elections that are happening that will be done by 7 o'clock their time, whatever, 7 o'clock tonight. They're pretty much sure the polls will be closing there in Thailand, and then in Turkey as well. Now, in both Turkey and Thailand, we are not going to know the winner probably today or tomorrow. It's going to take a while, because Thailand is a parliamentary election.
That's right,
It's kind of complicated. But anyway.
Yeah, there's not a lot of news about that, though, is there? I mean, it's out there, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, but this, every week on the show, we do usually an in-depth story into a specific subject. And I was looking around at stuff that was going on this week, trying to find something to read. And I found this very interesting subject that I wanted to talk about today and get your take on it, Dan. And it actually started a year ago at 3 a.m. in Detroit. And this guy, Anthony Jones, he's a distraught young man, and he decided to take his own life. And so he decided to poison himself with sodium nitrate.
Yikes.
Which is a substance that he got online from a guy. And the problem was that after he took it, 3 a.m. in the morning, he ran into his mother and he said, I took this poison to kill myself, but I've decided I don't want to kill myself anymore. And so his mother called 911, and they came, and they couldn't figure out what it was. They couldn't figure out what to do, and the boy ended up dying.
Right.
So this happened to another person as well, who ordered the same sodium nitrate from the same guy in Canada, committed suicide. So this week, that guy in Canada was arrested.
Yeah.
For,
hope so.
Sure. Assisted suicide. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to phrase it, because it just happened. But this is an interesting thought now, because this has been something that's been rolling around for a while about assisted suicide. Now, when we think about that, we think about a doctor coming in and administering some IV thing, whatever, and helping someone who has cancer or some disease, whatever, that they can never get over, and they're suffering, and he helps them die. But what about when a youth is thinking about suicide, and so he goes online and he finds like this site on how to kill yourself?
Okay.
And he orders sodium nitrate, has it delivered to his house, and takes it. Should the people that are selling that to those kids, are they liable for this?
Well, I mean, if they have knowledge that they're trying to take their own life, absolutely. I mean, is it illegal to?
That was something that I was looking at. Like in Canada, is this illegal? Because assisted suicide is illegal. Does this constitute that? Yeah. Is this constitute that? Right. And I think this is a new twist on an old subject, and something that we're going to have to start looking at.
Because I mean, there's a huge amount of other things that you could take to poison yourself. I mean, just household stuff you can buy at the store, right? So well, I mean, I don't want to be devil's advocate here, but sodium nitrate versus, swallowing rat poison. You know, I mean,
I guess if you want to kill yourself, I guess.
Yeah, if you want to kill yourself, you don't absolutely have to go online to order sodium nitrate. And so, but, I mean, if this person is actually advertising it, yes, of course. I mean,
yeah, I don't know. This is
Absolutely.
you know, this goes along the line of, you know, should assisted suicide be legal?
yeah, I mean, that's been, remember what was the doctor's name?
Yeah,
Kevorkian?
Dr. Kevorkian.
Yeah, that was where it really came out, right?
Yeah. Well, he was arrested like what? 30 times.
Yeah.
You know, he was always doing that kind of thing.
But his was a little bit different as well because those were like terminal patients and things like that. But a healthy kid that wants to kill himself. I mean, assisted suicide. When we talk about assisted suicide, we generally in our medical term would be somebody that's already at the end of their journey.
Yeah, that's the way I think of it. Not as some young kid who is distraught about his girlfriend leaving him.
That's right.
And so he wants to
that's
go on a
assisted
website
murder, isn't it?
and buy a drug that is there to commit suicide, like it's being marketed to commit suicide.
Sure. I mean, is that assisted
it's just,
murder?
You know, it's just, yeah, I know.
Assisted homicide.
I'm trying to figure out what it would be. But anyway, he's been arrested. However, it's hard to tell exactly what the charge is going to be against him.
Yeah.
But it turns out, what they were trying to do was stop him from sending out this stuff from now. And it turns out that he's already was able to send out like 1,200 packets of this stuff. But the interesting thing is there was another statistic that I looked at that in 2019, one person died from sodium nitrate. Right. And in 2020, 14 people died in just Ontario from this particular drug. So this is a trend. If all of a sudden it goes from 1 to 14, and that's when this guy started marketing this product. So anyway, I just, it was one of those things. There's so many things like right now that are based around, that we have to think about, that we have to base around the web. And this goes to the next story.
The dark web as well. Yeah.
I mean, the next story, which is back here in Asia, and that is cancel culture. That's the new word. That is a new term.
Not that new anymore.
It's not that new anymore, but I mean, that is the term of the 2020.
Sure.
Cancel culture. And this phrase, it's basically, in case you don't know, it's basically calling out a person or a brand or a celebrity or an organization, rightly or wrongly, for something you perceive as offensive.
Right.
And then, you post your grievance online, and then someone shares it, and then someone shares that, and before you know it, millions of people are talking about it.
It's a mass boycott.
And you're boycotting, you're boycotting whatever. So
boycott on steroids.
Boycott on steroids. And some of these things are, they're really bad. They're really hateful and mean. Well, but this week, there is a country, Singapore, that wants to make cancel culture illegal. And
how do you do that? TikTok. You got to start with TikTok.
When I was reading
influencers,
when I was reading this article about this, the question they had was, how are they going to do this?
Yeah.
How are they going to figure this out?
Sure.
And so, I mean, the problem that they were talking about, part of the reason that they're doing this in Singapore, they're having problems there with the transsexual community.
Sure.
And, that people are saying, the transsexuals are trying to turn our children into transsexuals. Sure. And so they want to head this off at the pass before, like I said, somebody gets killed or, some issues, turning people's attitude to a negative way against a certain group. So the question was that how is Singapore possibly ever going to pass this law? And what would the law look like? And how will they define what it means to cancel someone?
Well, I mean, so there's something that Korea has that's been controversial and they have a very strict defamation law. And so in the defamation law in Korea, even if it's true, let's say I publicly say something about you, and it's true. Let's say you cheated on your wife, okay? And I say, oh, Eric cheated on his wife, and I publicly announce that. even though that's true or whatever else, I am still liable for defamation. If I talk about a restaurant, okay, this restaurant served me horrible food. If I name that restaurant, I can get sued by that restaurant for defamation. Even if they had bugs in the food, and I said they had bugs in the food, I am liable for defamation for that restaurant, even if it's true.
So now we're on the fine line of free speech.
That's right.
We're on a very teetering thing of what is free speech and what is not free speech, and what kind of, what kind of authoritarian dictatorship are we living in when I can't talk about a restaurant, whether it's good or bad.
Right. And so, there are very strict defamation laws. Like even on social media and Facebook, you can't say things. In Korea, you can't say things, or you could get prosecuted for that.
What's interesting is one of the things that Singapore wants to do is they want the police to be able to, or the courts to be able to send a court order to Twitter or Facebook, and that Twitter and Facebook in Singapore have to take down that post, whatever that post is.
I've been through all of this in the defamation laws in Korea. You have to be able to prove that Facebook profile, and this is, I think, Facebook, what they did with, like not too long ago, I got locked out of my Facebook. I had to show them my passport, everything. I had to prove that that account was mine. I mean, literally, I had to send a screenshot of my passport, my ID, everything. This was like almost a year and a half ago. It was during the COVID era. I got red flagged or something, and I lost all access to my Facebook, which was a little bit harrowing because my business was at that time dependent on that. And so I was locked out, and I had to literally go online and like 6 hours of searching, and then I finally found the link, and then I sent them like photos of my ID, everything, which I don't really care about anyway. It's a lot of people go, oh, they're just trying to control, whatever. Anybody wants to steal my ID, just make my credit better, please. So anyway, so after I did all that, I got it back. And I think that was part of being able to be liable for your Facebook profile and what you say, because I know that in the law, to try to grab somebody with their Facebook account in a defamation case, the first thing they'll ask is, can you prove that that's their account? Because, I mean, you can make fraud accounts. Really, I could take all your photos and I can make the same account and pretend to be you and nobody would know.
Yeah. I mean...
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's so many... I mean, I was just, as I've been thinking about this, and I had the same thing too. I mean, I made a joke one time about somebody was talking about Republicans in a balloon, and I said, I'm surprised they didn't pull out a gun and shoot her.
Oh yeah, yes.
It was kind of a joke, and I got this, like, all these warnings and so forth, and I got like
you got a Trump moment.
For like 30 days, I couldn't do something.
Watch what you
say. But it's interesting now that this is where we are. That the things that we say and the misinformation, the incredible things that are coming out, that we can say about anything. That you can say about someone. Because I'm thinking to myself as I'm reading this article, and I don't want to talk about Donald Trump, whatever, but I'm like, if Donald Trump was living in Singapore right now, I mean, or people in the Republican Party that send these things out about stuff that absolutely, some of it is equivocally not true. The QAnon supporters and so forth that he was talking about in his town hall, that and these workshop, this thing going on in Florida right now, with a lot of the things that they're saying that are just, against other, the Jews, they're going against all these, saying all these things about it. Like, should all of a sudden we be liable for everything that we say that is not true? And at what point, well, you can express your opinion. That's freedom of speech. At what point does freedom of speech stop and liability start?
Sure. I mean, there's a law in Washington, verbal assault. If you threaten somebody verbally, even if you're in a bar and you go, "Oh, I'll beat you up," whatever, you can get arrested for that. That's right.
Yeah, and on the same token, you can knock somebody in the face
Right.
and get off.
Yeah, exactly.
Because
So it's kind of
I mean,
but then going back to Singapore, you get caned for things in Singapore, like you know what I mean, like smoking cigarettes on the street. And
I know.
Gum was the big thing.
Wow.
If you spit gum out on the sidewalk, yeah, that's like a criminal offense.
Well, in Singapore, you can also run your car into somebody who's jaywalking and kill them, and it's okay.
Yeah.
So, which is why when I was in Singapore and there was
crazy.
nobody coming,
That's
and I started to walk
crazy.
across the street, and some guy reached out and grabbed my
Really?
shirt, pulled me back. No.
Well,
That's
you know what the reverse to that is? In Korea, if somebody jumps out in front of your car and you kill him, you go to jail.
You go to jail.
You go automatic jail. If there's a death, whether it's your fault or not, you go to jail if you're the driver. Doesn't matter. If he tried to kill himself, speaking of assisted death, if somebody jumps out in front of your car to kill yourself and you kill him, even though you go to jail, it's mandatory.
Which is interesting about that. You know, not to switch subjects here.
Yeah, I know.
Case that happened in the New York subway last week.
Oh yeah,
And, you know,
that
I
was
talked about this
crazy.
This guy, this ex-military guy,
Yeah.
grabbed the guy around the throat
And killed him, yeah.
and killed. Anyway, he has been
Yeah, what happened to
taken
that?
into custody,
Right.
But
They-
they haven't decided yet if they're going to be if there's going to be a charge.
Yeah,
So.
there needs to be a charge. I think. My opinions with that.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of my too, because you
Yeah.
can't.
You just can't put your hands on somebody that's not physically threatening you. Period. That's it. Period.
Yeah, I mean
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
So that's one of the things that I'm waiting to see how that whole thing turns out because you know if he gets off with nothing, this white military guy who killed this
I know.
black guy,
That's going to be outrage and more riots.
This is going to be a
Riots.
big problem in the United
Yeah.
States. So I'm waiting to see. But you know, it's interesting to see how this law turns out in Singapore.
Yeah.
That's going to affect a lot of other countries.
I think they'll.
We're all trying to figure out what we're going to do, and especially you know right now we've got this election coming up, and the elections coming up in the United States, the elections like around you know different places around the world, and how are we going to start dealing with this incredible amount of misinformation, which
Yeah.
continually keeps, you know, blowing up online, and Singapore is thinking they're going to make it against the law.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge social disaster about to happen right now, because the more misinformation comes out, the more control we think we need to.
I know, and people, especially in the Philippines, somebody says something about somebody, and they come to me and they go, Eric, you know, can you help me make a case against this person? And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my
Get that all
goodness,
the
here we
time,
go, here we go.
right?
Just
Yeah.
making a case against this.
Yeah, Philippines had their own big case with Rappler. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was huge.
That was huge.
So, you know.
So, like I said, the way things are going to proceed in the world, and the way and the things that we can say, you know, we got a chance to see the ex-president of the United States come on CNN last week and say an entire show, town hall worth of things that were not true. And what are you going to do? How are you going to, you know, how are we going to deal with this in the future? Misinformation, and it's, you know, as social media slowly takes over
That's right.
television.
It's not even slowly. I mean, it's running at a speed so fast we can't keep up.
Yeah.
And we really can't. And this is what's happening now, is that everybody truly does have a voice now. You know, we used to say that everybody's voice counts. You know, back in the day, before internet, before radio, that was just a dream, really. It really didn't. It wasn't really reality. But now, fast forward 50 years later.
Yeah, I mean, you can be anti-Jewish, anti-black, anti-Asian, and you have your own show.
You have your
in your
voice.
basement, you
That's
know,
right.
and then you put it out, and you get followers, and they share
That's
your
right.
show, and before you know it, your show can spread, and this happens all the time. This happens, especially the guy that got he got sued. He just lost a suit for $900 million. Alex Jones,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
he got sued. He lost, and he's still in the air.
Yeah. I mean,
and people still listen to him.
we talked about that new word, influencer, right? We have influencers now, right? And so, like, I mean, anybody has a voice to influence anybody. The power of influence now is in everybody's hands. And so, how do we keep that in check? Do we keep it in check? I mean, all of society is right now at a point where we're running at such a fast speed. What can we keep up?
I know. I mean, I think a lot of what's going to be very interesting, I think, is how, especially with what's happening in the Congress right now in the United States, and I hate to say this again because it gets boring after a while, the debt ceiling. And if that is a catastrophe like it is,
We'll know by next week, I think.
We're all gonna be looking to social media and all the misinformation that's gonna come flying out. And we got like I said, we have the Thailand election that is going to be today. We're going to find out the next week the Turkish election and how the youth people are going to start shaping the world of politics.
Sure.
Coming up in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
So if we don't fall off a cliff in June, when the financial markets, drop.
We're heading really fast into an epoch, I think. We really are. We're coming to a...
So, let's bring the show down as much as we possibly can before we get to the end here. But for me, Eric Lecain and Dan Kang here on the World News Jam on DZRJ and RJ TV. We'd like to thank everybody for being with us today here on Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day, everybody out there. Happy Mother's Day, moms, and hope everybody has a great day. And everybody, please be safe out there. And Dan and I will see you next week here on the World News Jam on DZRJ and RJ TV. We'll see you then.
The views and comments of the hosts and guests are not necessary.